November 10th, 2017. Yesterday I was able to beat my way through some thin stretches of ice using a shovel as a paddle. But today there's a lot more ice on the lake, and I'm going to try something different. It's a gorgeous day. It's about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. You can see the broken ice line as it comes across the lake. You can see the wind riffling some of the open water that's to the west. Amazingly, there are still 3 pairs of swans hanging out on the little stretches of open water. This is looking down on my stairway up to the cabin and at my wharf and the canoe poised on the edge of the lake. Always the Boy Scout, I try to come prepared. I've got a paddle and a shovel. I paddle over to the thin edge of ice that's formed just to check it out. And I'm looking for the thinnest band to cross. I've been paddling my canoe with the kayak paddle for years. Never understood why, since the invention of a kayak paddle, a person would want to use a canoe paddle. You stroke on one side and you do a J stroke, or you switch over to the other side to keep going straight. With the kayak paddle, you got twice the paddle in the water and directional control is easy. I keep looking up because I'm afraid I'm going to knock the drone out of the air with my wild flailing. This is kind of testimony of how tough these plastic kayak paddles are, breaking through 1/2 inch to 1 inch of ice. Eventually you have to pull out the shovel. Give you a little more braking power when it comes to busting through ice. I finished cutting my way through the thin ice and paddled over to the shore, went to work at the cabage, and by the time I was finished, late in the afternoon, as the sun was setting, I come back to the lake and find that it has skimmed over about 1 inch, 1.5 inches of ice. I knew I didn't want to have to cut my way back through the ice paddling the canoe with the shovel. I gingerly schlepped across the narrow end of the lake, and Willis walked on water to where we got to the hard shore, hiked 1/4 mile to the cabin through the woods with heavy hip boots on. Saturday, November 11th. It was in the 20s all last night. So this morning I put on some boot chains and I'm taking the plastic canoe across the lake because it slides so much easier. And I'd left the aluminum canoe on the other shore. The ice is only 1.5 inches thick or so, but it supports the distributed weight of the canoe. And it's quite easy to just push your way across. It's hard to tell how thick the ice is, and as a safety, I am always staying suspended over the canoe in case it breaks through. Then I'll end up being able to get in the canoe or at least fall in the canoe. Here I'm testing the ice, and like I said, it's only 1 inch, 1.5 inches thick. Being out on that thin ice is rather puckery. You'll notice that Willis is staying very securely in the canoe. There's no way in hell he's going to get out. It looks too sketchy for him. I think he's smarter than I am. Here I'm gliding across a crystal clear sheet of ice. It looks like water. You just can't believe that it holds Willis and me in the canoe up. And here we're approaching a line of what was the edge of the ice, which has broken chunks of ice that have stacked up and refrozen. And that, you can tell, is really secure and very thick. then pushing back across that in a straight line going toward the four-wheeler, and sure enough, it isn't that thick, and I break through. Because I was straddling the canoe, when I broke through, all I had to do was sit down, and I was safe and secure. Now I have to wrestle the canoe from the thin broken ice up onto the ledge of the thicker ice. And you'll notice that Willis isn't doing a dang thing to help. I'm using a little adze. It's got a pointy end and then a picky axe end with a wooden handle to drag myself along. It's kind of like a crude ice axe. I'm reaching up onto that thick shelf of formerly broken ice that's refrozen. And I've gotten to a point to where I can actually step out on that ledge of solid ice, grab a anchor with the adze, and drag the canoe up on the bench. And again, Willis is staying in the canoe, getting bounced around a little bit, but he knows it's safe where he's hanging out. So I've learned my lesson: stay on the broken ice, even though it's noisier and crunchier, not as fast and smooth and fun as the smooth ice, but at least I won't have to go through all that exercise of getting us from the water back up on the lens. Dang, this is a lot of hot work. It's time to peel off a layer. Back to pushing. It looks like I'm a crippled up old man or something, the way I'm waddling along. But you can't tell. I'm wearing camo wool overalls, and then I have these big, heavy, clunky camo hip waders on, and they're padded on the knees, and it's in the 20s, and they're not flexible. So I'm waddling along like I got something in my pants. It's really uncomfortable. I can see the goal in sight, and that's the four-wheeler sitting on the lake shore. Getting closer. The drone has been doing a pretty good job at keeping track of me and following along. And then sometimes it just seems to get confused. So it's doing this arcing pan, and then it stops and lets me push out from under its frame. And I'm watching it on the monitor in the canoe. So I have to stop and reset the drone to where it can keep track of us again. And we're cruising along, pushing along the lake, staying on solid ice, getting closer and closer to the lake shore. Waddle, waddle, waddle. It is as hard of work as it seems. You can see that cut there, and then the lumber laying on the lake. That's where I shoveled my way through the other day, and the lumber was what I was using for the drone landing pad. It's a lot more comfortable flying this drone when most of the lake is frozen instead of flying over open water. You'll notice that the drone is following us quite nicely, and then it zooms up and then stops. And I can't tell you why. And it just hovers there, watching us waddle into the sunlight, just hanging out, kind of gaining altitude a little bit. And then and then I guess it just kind of gets bored. Goes, I think I'll descend a little bit, look around a little bit, and that's when I get back on the controls, try to figure where it is, and I'm pushing on a joystick thinking I'm making it go one direction, when in fact it's not going that direction at all, because I have sunlight in my eyes. I can't see it. I have no idea where it is, where it's going. That's exactly what I saw on the monitor. Foliage. Not a good sign. You saw how far I'd gotten. Now I have to scoot the canoe all the way back and then look along the shoreline hoping I can find the drone. Well, it's got little blinky LED lights. I was able to find it. Willis, hanging out in the canoe. He has no idea what all this insanity is, so he's staying put. Well, the drone did fly, took off. Things were cool. Time to resume my waddle toward the shore. Man, it's just gorgeous. Crystal clear ice, beautiful sunny day. Pushing along, trying to get back to the crunchy ice where I know it's real safe and secure. The drone seems to be following along quite nicely, keeping us centered in the frame. As I miraculously walk on water, and it is so smooth. Push, push, glide, glide. But the drone wasn't supposed to just sit there and watch us wander off. It was supposed to be following along. We're getting further and further away, gliding back into that beautiful, bright sunlight. It's so bright, you can hardly see anything. And once again, I lose track of the drone. So I stop and try to figure out where it is again. And I think I'm seeing it maneuver one way or another. But obviously it's going the wrong way. You guessed it. More foliage. Crashed again. This time it took almost 10 minutes to find it. I was guessing that it was over to the south, but no, it was to the north. I finally found it along the shoreline. Blinky little lights. Pick it up. This time I took a notch out of a prop, so I'm not sure how it would fly. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the craziest parts of adventures are very rarely captured on video. That's because so much crap's going on, or you're about to lose your drone, or your hip boots are full of water because pushing the canoe off the shore you broke through and you went over the top. So now I've got two soaking wet, frozen feet. I'm back in the canoe on solid ice.
He's alive.
I'm done with this drone stuff. I want to get to Terra Dirta and get back out to the treehouse to where I can change boots, get dry socks on, warm up my feet, which is exactly what I did.
And the arduous journey. That was exercise. Huh, buddy? Put a PFD on him today. Should have done that earlier this week.
Over the next few days, the ice puts on more thickness. I'm drilling it every day until it gets to 4 inches where I'm confident it can hold up the four-wheeler. And now I'm back to a regular commute back and forth between the treehouse and the cabin.